So I'll now hand you over to the fantastic and our friend, Paul Laidlaw, who'd certainly like to say a few words. Thank you and welcome, Paul.
I've got to say, this is one of the most powerful stories I will ever play a tiny part in. And it's a story 80 plus years old, because it didn't end in 45-46 with the award of a Dickin medal to a wee birdie from these here parts. It ends, in a sense, today. Shall we recap on the story? So, in the midst of a world war, I'm going to say humble pigeon keeper, what, 5 miles from here? He's doing what he does, yeah? Looking after amazing birds, and loses one of them in a race. And I'm sure that happens on occasion. And that's the end of that, is it not? Well, we know it's not. Because some time, not so long later, but hundreds of miles away, a Dutch postie in the occupied Netherlands stumbles across a weary bird, I guess near to death. And he knows a young accountant who kept racing pigeons. I say kept because the military intelligence application of homing pigeons has been known for, I suspect, literally millennia. But certainly it was recognised in the Great War, and during the Second World War, the occupying German forces ordered that all homing pigeons be culled for fear that they could be used by resistance organisations to deliver covert intelligence and messages. So our our Dutch accountant, young man, had been ordered, as with his peers, to cull their pigeons. But apparently, it's a side story this. He managed to keep a couple of pigeons by ringing other dead pigeons and handing them in and saying, well, here's the register, you know I've got so many pigeons, there's so many rings. But those pigeons are another story. The pigeon, who is named Tommy by the Dutch, after Tommy Atkins, the epitome of the British soldier, is nursed back to life. Now, said Dutchman also has links to the Dutch resistance. They become aware of a strategic site, an arms build-up that they really need to inform the Allies about. So why don't we see if Tommy will do what pigeons do and go home? So a message is affixed to Tommy, and off he's sent. Now, apparently, and there's at least one person here knows more about this than I do, apparently a pigeon may circle to an extent to get their bearings in my lay terms. Does a bit of circling, stops, catches its breath, and was spotted by a German soldier and was sniped at and shot. Story's still not over, because Tommy, this is so powerful, it affects me if I stutter, it's emotion. Tommy sets off, literally winged, a few hundred miles, I think it's 400 miles later. Our original Cumbrian pigeon keeper gets told by his daughter, Dad, one of your pigeons is back. What? Down at the loft, and here's Tommy, and I dare say for the second time in its life, near to death, bleeding, but home, with a message attached. Well, it's literally double Dutch. Yes, but it's signed off in English, in Pigeon English. God save Queen Wilhelmina, and God save Winston Churchill. Pigeon is handed, the message is handed over to the police. Now that was apparently the end of it from a Cumbrian point of view. Until at the end of the war, in the interim, a certain location in the Netherlands had been bombed by Allied air forces. Yeah, the end of the war, I think it was quite literally a knock on the door here, and an announcement is made that Tommy has been awarded the Animal VC, the Animal Victoria Cross, the Dickin Medal. At the presentation of the award was present senior members of the Dutch military and the RAF senior officer who was in charge of the National Pigeon Service that was set up to coordinate the use of pigeons in this highly important war role. Subsequently, after the war, the Dutch chap took, I believe, his new bride on holiday in Britain and headed again to these parts to meet up with the owners of, and maybe to meet Tommy again. Now, Tommy became a little local celebrity, and quite right too, and was shown at pigeon events and around local schools where the kids would stand to attention and salute the wee birdie, yeah? Complete with his gong. And donations were made, and these donations were pooled, and ultimately, and it's so powerful, I can't look, is this, Tommy keeps coming up, but it's all about people, it's all about humanity. These funds were used to buy a wee plot of land for kids to play on. And on that site was erected is it a sports hall here, or however you call it, sports centre. And that could have been the end of it. Medals tend to languish in drawers, ladies and gentlemen, so did this. And Tommy went the way of all mortality. But earlier this year, the medal surfaced, and someone thought, you know what, maybe there's another more life to be breathed into the medal. Maybe it should be let loose. And the odds were, if you'd asked me, the auctioneer that was asked, privileged to handle this medal, odds were it would end up in the hands of a wealthy collector. And it didn't, did it? Because it didn't fly the nest and end up in someone else's collector's cabinet or in a museum elsewhere. It ended up in its true home, and that's in an institution as good as this, to be cherished by its own community and accessible in truth to the world. I think justice was done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Back to where I started. It's been an absolute privilege to play a tiny part in this amazing 80-year-old story. But look, can I hand over? I've done enough.
I will keep it very brief. First of all, I just want to say thank you to so many people. Thank you to the family for making that decision to put it up for auction. I want to thank Furness Maritime Trust for their speedy action, that we got there in time and raised funds for the auction. I want to thank Councillor Roy, where is, and he was the first one who let me know and said, this medal is coming up, we need to do something about it. And I want to thank our visitors as well, because it's their donations to the museum that's allowed us also to do this. And just to say, we talked about the end of a story, but actually I don't know if this is a continuance or a brand new story here, but having Tommy's medal here and having it on display is part one of a story. You know, we have huge ambitions to really showcase and celebrate and share Tommy's story to anyone who will listen. So, you know, we're going to do an animated film, we're working with schools, create workshops, and really promote and celebrate this fantastic story of this plucky bird from Dalton. So, without further ado, I'll stop talking now and I will hand you over to the family, and they will unveil the medal.
to see so many interested people with some relationship to that fabulous medal and that great story in attendance. It had a great feeling, great air. Engineering, I love engineering, I love science and technology, put history into that. And it was radio aerials, you're like, what the hell? It sneaks up on you. As you approach it, you drive up to the dock, I can say, the harbour area, and it looks like a well-built, modern building, yeah, but not, I'm going to say nondescript. Is it a gift shop? Is it a little visitor centre? What is it? I'll tell you what it is. It's a TARDIS. Once you walk into it, it reveals itself as having been built into a huge dry dock. So you come in, you think at ground level of a single story building, but you're coming in at the top level of a multi-layered building. The views are phenomenal. Architecturally, it's a masterpiece. But see, when you get in, okay, it is a dock museum, so you expect to see maritime items that are no end of fabulous shipbuilders' models and so on, but it's way bigger than that. It is Barrow's museum, so it touches on many aspects of the history, the social history, the industrial, commercial history, the military history of Barrow and that peninsula. It's a cracking museum. The museum's fantastic. Barrow's a fascinating area. Peel Castle, Walney Island. The history is long and rich, and the people are great, I'm going to say that. But the Dock Museum, if that was all you went to see, you wouldn't regret it.